Can't tell if
All
this
right.
warrior was diamond or plat.
Alrighty. Um, so this was on the ladder. This replay.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about how this game went.
I mean,
If you
he
remember.
so I was really struggling with map control, and by the time I had scouted him,
Mhm.
he was already on his natural when I was still making drones,
Okay.
and he already had like somewhat of an army going,
Okay.
and he just like from there he just kind of steamrolled in a way that he knew where I was, and he knew that I wasn't far enough to where I could defend myself. So he just kind of he built sentinels and just destroyed me.
Okay. So, like I was telling you before, the two big things that we're going to be talking about today, in light of this, are going to be timings, and identifying those timings, and recognizing that they are there, and we need to be ready for them. And two, how to make adjustments.
Okay.
Because, like, for instance, like if you play a game of ZVP and you decide that your strategy going in is going to be Ling Muta, and you go in and you do that, and you're like, dang it, I lost. I better build 12 roaches to hold this zealot push off that happens at this time. And then you're like, you go into the next game and that guy doesn't build zealots. Now your 12 roaches are doing nothing. You don't have a game plan anymore. Like, we don't want to make huge sweeping adjustments, right? We want to make small adjustments. So let's go into this and we will see how things went and what adjustments we can make to maybe make sure this doesn't happen again in the next game.
Okay. Is that a diamond or plat border? I can't tell.
I'm actually not sure. I'm also not even sure that 100% matters, but all right, so we're gonna take a look at your camera, and I'm just gonna speed things up a little bit. I want to get a little bit of a feel for the overview here. We'll go ×4.
That's 12 fold.
Yep, that's fine. So very quick pool.
I didn't capitalize on it though, which was stupid. I built
I
like 3
mean,
Zergs and then
you built a queen. You built a fairly early queen, right? Which is like part of the reason why you would do that, right? So we're definitely delaying gas. So yeah, that's fine. Okay, we're getting across the map. We got a wall in from the Protoss. It's unfortunate, but that's fine. Losing 4 Zerglings to that is kind of okay. But where did our lings go? Where
they
did our
died.
They didn't all
yeah,
die. Two of them got
the new
out.
one's up. The new one's up, right?
Thought,
I don't know. I guess press it too.
I thought that 2 of them got out. Was I incorrect?
No, one got out. Pretty sure.
Okay. Okay, only one gets out. That's fine.
So I kind of.
But this
I know now.
ring, right? Yeah.
I know now that I should place it like in the next natural.
You can either do that, or you can just put it like here.
Okay.
Like this general region, right? Like you want the vision around here. Now, like, overlords are nice for this sort of thing, but like if they kind of creep forward with these pylons, or with these more of these like photon cannons, or even they just get a couple stalkers and they just start moving out across the map, this overlord will die. So like a lot of times, like when we're doing like overlord like kind of things, where if you put the overlord like here, you can get some pretty good vision. And if they come with a stalker over here to poke at you, the overlord will naturally fly like away. So they'll come like this way. Or if they try to like pincer you, it'll like move down this way, and now it could be safe over here until they get air units to come and poke it out. So like that's why like we would like if we put like a ling here instead, we would know like what they're doing. That said, like we know they have a wall off at their natural, which means like ling harassment probably not going to happen. This also tells me that this player is probably like, because they went a very early forge with, as far as we know, no cannon rush. They didn't cannon rush you, but they built a forge really early. which means this is likely 4 cannons. They built 2 cannons here as a start. This seems to be like this player is saying, I would like to be defensive. Now, that's not 100% true. They could be somebody who's looking to be super aggressive, but for some reason they build defenses at the beginning of the game and then switch it on, and they'll lose to better players. But that's what that's kind of telling me at least to start. But yeah, so I would make sure to keep that Ling forward. We have not started gas production, so that's something we want to make sure we get on top of. Is when we build an extractor, we want to mine out of it.
I was just doing it like for
Yeah.
getting more minerals at that point, but I don't think I noticed. To be honest with you.
I mean, my thing is if you're hyper focused on getting your minerals and you want to play more of a like we talked about before, the Spanish Shiwa style, then just don't build the extractor. Like if you're not gonna mine out of it, don't build it.
Fair enough.
Because like a lot of times when we do something, we want to make sure that we do it with purpose. We want to make sure that like we make use of it immediately, and the reason we're using it immediately is so that we get whatever we're getting out of that. We're making use of it, of whatever comes next at the timing that it comes out next. So like a lot of times, the reason why we take like a gas at like a particular time is because it means that we like whoever like made the build or whatever, or maybe we made our own build. The reason is because we go, oh, like the way that all of these things line up, if I get my gas here, maybe I get gas at 2 minutes. Just a random time, 2 minutes, we get a gas. And then maybe it takes, like, I don't know the numbers on this, so I'm just making this up. So maybe we say that by the time when we're mining three guys in that geyser, maybe at 3 minutes, we have 150 gas, which is what we need to get a piece of technology or something. Right. So like that's like kind of why things go down the times they do. So if we're really just only focusing on minerals, then just don't bother with the gas. But
okay.
There's also something that's actually pretty common. Certain speedling openings, what they'll do is they'll get this geyser, they'll put 3 guys in it, and they'll mine gas to 100, get Ling speed, and then pull geyser. They'll pull the drones off the geyser and put them back on minerals.
Oh, okay.
For certain things. So like don't ever feel like you can't just like get your gas, do your thing that you want to do with your gas, and then if you don't need to make another gas play immediately, just pull them off the geyser if you need more minerals. But yeah, if we're not planning on mining gas for a little bit, then just don't bother building it just yet.
All right.
Okay, so all right, I want to see where these Lings go. They're currently just sitting out front of the base. Now
I don't do anything with them, I'm pretty sure.
So, and this is part of why like speed is so good, right? Like metabolic boost, like the difference in our Zerglings and what they can do is massive. So I don't blame you for just sitting like some Lings outside your base, just because like they can't really do a whole lot when they don't have speed. But yeah, like we talked about before the VOD, if we put some Lings like just around the map, we know what's happening and we can respond much better, because Zerg is really good at responding. If we know a push is coming, we can produce units that could be online when they get there. Okay, so we go for Roach Bane. So talk to me about this army composition. So you've got a Roach Warren, you're getting up a Baneling nest. What is your army mix here, and how are you planning on using them?
Well, because of the matchup, I'm leaning more towards going Roach Hydra.
Okay.
And I want to have Banelings in there for the Sentinels, if they have them.
For the Sentinels.
Or,
okay.
This is what is it called? Zealots.
Well, for Zealots. Okay, for Zealots. Yeah, yes. I think that makes some sense. I think part of it to me is like what we know they're doing so far, right?
Right.
Because like what we know right now is not a whole lot. So I'm kind of scared. I'm really kind of scared Well, it's not so much being reactionary. I actually think that like what we're doing right now with this Baneling nest is we're making a huge assumption about what our Protoss opponent is about to do.
All right.
Roaches are armored units. They have a lot of health. Roaches are pretty good against zealots anyway. You can also kite with the zealot. We can also kite with the roaches. So if you just like as the zealots without, if they don't have charge, you could just sort of like run your roaches back and do that stutter step micro that we talked about. Yeah. You could just like, and they have a very slow attack speed, so you can just sort of like spit, run away, spit, run away, spit, and you can really mitigate a lot of the zealot stuff. So like I think you don't need the banelings this early.
Yeah.
And if they don't actually make zealots, this baneling nest doesn't do a whole lot.
As well, like the idea I had with the banelings as well, like
yeah,
because I want you to correct me on this. Usually if they wall up like that, which they usually do, I will make banelings and just spawn a ton of them just to break the wall. Wall breakers.
Yeah, that is something you can do. Like banelings do more damage to buildings than they do to units, so they are effective at breaking down buildings. But again, if you just have a Roach Hydra force and you come to break down this wall here, right? Like if you have like a medium amount of like roaches and hydras, like this photon cannon's not going to stop you. Like you could break this wall down pretty easily just with your normal force. And what worries me about going straight into baneling tech without knowing what they're doing behind this wall is what if they're going air?
That would be bad.
And we're investing in a baneling nest.
Right, so
like
it's wasted resources.
What we could be doing instead, it's not just wasted resources, it's wasted time. That's what I'm more worried about is the time that it takes, right? Because you're going to be using a little bit of gas here to get a baneling nest up. When like we could be getting lair tech right now, so we could be going to a lair to get ourselves a hydra done, because like at this stage of the game we're only 4 minutes in, right? So at 4 minutes our queens are enough to hold off like an early void ray or like phoenix harassment. Like we're kind of fine to like early Protoss air harass, but like if we don't start getting toward hydras and this is an air Protoss player, like we are gonna die because we have an army that only hits things on the ground. If they are playing a ground army, then like okay, like that's fine, because then like we do have stuff that can potentially stand up to them provided we build it at the right time. But for right now, like all we know is that they've got like they don't even have a warp gate as far as we know, right? Like because we only saw a gateway. So if this player like they could like have just been like delaying their gateway tech or warp gate tech because they built this forge, so the cybernetics core didn't go down as soon as it should have. That's possible. But this, granted, if we had a Ling that could occasionally like walk down and take a look, we would know when this was a warp gate, and that could potentially help tell us something, right?
Right.
If our overlord is over this gap, looking at their gas geysers, we might know something about what they're doing. If they take these gas geysers early, that might be another indication they're actually making an air play. Because if they need that much gas that early in the game, like granted, they are going to take these eventually, so we shouldn't be like, oh, they have geysers, therefore blah. But like it's the timing, right? If they take them early, it tells us this player wants a lot of gas. That means one of two things: either they're going DT rush, in which case, oh crap, we need to be ready for that. Or two, they're going for like mass air. I guess potentially they could be going for like a 2 robo, like a rush to double robo to like pump out maybe like immortals. Maybe they're hard assuming that you're gonna play roaches, and so they just like go straight to immortals for like no reason. It's always a possibility. But anyway, let's take a look at what kind of continues to happen here. So, okay, we're just macroing. That's fine. Okay, we go for... Sorry, I just want to see what this building is. Oh, it's an Evo chamber, okay. Yep, Evo's fine. Double Evo is also another thing that people tend to do. It'll depend on your build and how much gas you're using. If you're using a ton of your gas on units, you can't afford the double Evo. But if your build is such that you can't afford the double Evo, it's really nice. I think I saw you do double Evo in other games before, so
I do. I
it's
learned
fine.
that recent, like the past day.
Okay, so you got your Hydra Den down. You got some Banes. You got some Roaches.
I'm not doing anything.
You're a little bit supply blocked. That's fine. It's gonna happen.
Looks like AFK.
A little bit here. A little bit, yeah. That's so. This is another thing, right? So, because we only we're just starting extra queens.
Yeah, I only do it when I have like a surplus, which I really need to
you're floating 1,200 minerals as it is. Like, you definitely could have produced these queens earlier. You probably could be taking a third here too, honestly. Like,
yeah.
But so,
I think I did start to take a third. I
Did
just
you?
did. Yeah, he's
he's on the way.
Right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Which I want to see where you go with this.
I put it up to the top left.
Up top left. Okay.
Right there.
So,
Yeah.
what allows you to take this base, and when would you prefer to take this base?
So, the reason I took the top left is because it's less of a direct path
Right.
than where you would need to get to my base,
Okay.
and so it's kind of out of the way, so it's less likely to get destroyed. And I feel like if I were to take the other base,
Mm-hmm.
I'd do it only if I were trying, if they were really low or down, or
Okay.
I was ahead.
So, those are definitely that reasoning makes sense, but it's sort of incomplete. So, and part of this relates to to be perfectly honest, you don't have the information you need to determine whether this should be your third base or whether this should be your third base. The reason is because you would take this base, right? If you are the more mobile army composition. So if your army is more mobile than theirs, then you want to expand in a way that puts you further away from your opponent, because it's easier for you to stop them trying to punish you, right? And if they go for if they go for like a base over here, if they go for a base over here, like, you're all over the place. Like, what are they gonna do, right?
Right.
But if you're spread out and you're the less mobile army composition, you can't defend all these bases. Like, you could, like, if you decided to span around across the top, and you're not the more mobile army composition, you can't defend these. And so the direction you expand instead of away from your opponent is towards your opponent. You stay clustered up with your expansions so that it's easier for you to move your army through your bases.
Gotcha.
So that they can't like use their mobility to punish you as easily. Like, they still can, but it's not going to be as easy. Not to mention, it also puts your as you're doing it, typically your army will be sitting at whatever base, if you're the less mobile comp, sitting at the base that is closest to your opponent. So as you're kind of like leapfrogging these bases forward across the map, you're getting closer and closer to them, and your army can then attack their base quicker and quicker as you're expanding towards them. So
one thing I noticed though,
Yeah.
is I don't creep spread whatsoever this game.
yeah, that is a problem. It's something that it took Zerg's years to figure that out. It seems silly, but it really took us years to figure out creep spread was important. So like, don't feel too bad about it. You're gonna you don't do it this game. Okay, we don't see it so much. I think part of it is just because our extra queens took so long to get there. When we are floating this big chunk of minerals. Okay, we're moving our army just kind of in between our second or third. Now, that was actually really important. So the Protoss player had a probe there, which means no. You should. You can. I shouldn't say you should or shouldn't, but you can. But the point is, he knows the base exists.
Yeah.
And this is something where we now have a concrete thing where our opponent is doing much better at scouting us than we are at scouting them.
Right.
And we also need to recognize when we're giving our opponent information.
Okay.
So, which it's always fine. In fact, you'll see some pros actually purposely do things to give false information to an opponent. They will like put a building somewhere and then be like, haha, he saw it. And then as soon as whatever spotter goes away, they'll cancel the building and just go build it somewhere else. Or build a completely different tech structure just to give them false scouting information. But yeah, so like just know what your opponent knows, and we need to do a better job of knowing what our opponent is doing.
Right.
So
scouting's like a big thing.
Scouting is huge. Yes. So we get infestation pit. They're void rays. They're void rays. What? Yes. Okay. So at this point, we're panicking, right? Like,
correct.
The first thing we see is void rays, and we've got these banelings. So
it's comical, I know.
Thankfully they didn't attack us super early, so we do have hydras. We do have some amount of hydras. But again, like one of the things that's gonna let us actually combat these void rays is our creep spread. So something else we identified, right? Yeah. Is if we creep spread better and we know what they're doing better, then we can react to these a little bit more. Okay. I'm really glad this. Oh wow, they're doing everything I said that aren't counters with banelings. Okay. All right, I think that's enough. So yeah.
Wait,
this is
finish it. I want to
finish it. Okay.
That's so funny.
Okay.
Just wait. You'll see it in like a few seconds.
Okay. Slow the game back down.
How it ends. That's how it ends. You can speed it up if you want.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah. Master 2.
Look at who's defeated.
Wait. What?
He surrendered.
What? Oh my god.
He just wanted to criminally.
Alright. Apparently, this is the strat, is just have your opponent leave the game. And then you're fine.
Yeah, this is what makes me just...
I actually, so this is the... I saw a replay of somebody who did this where they played Terran. And at the start of a match, they said like server, like there was an error creating this game, like match will be terminated. And then they put their SCVs inside their command center and lifted it up and flew it off the map. And then their opponent, they just sat there and did nothing for the entire game. And then their opponent like walked across and went to go scout and was like, there's no opponent here. And he just left. He just left again.
That's actually so funny.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. But yes, so let's take a look at the everyone cam. And we'll come back down to here. So wow, they did literally everything. Holy cow. So if we look at what we see, right? Like, we see this wall at a natural. We don't know this base exists. We don't have any idea of what their technology is, right? So this is where like scouting could tell us a whole lot. This Protoss player just got to do whatever he wanted, and then he just threw the game for no reason. So Dark Shrine. This is terrifying. Invisible men that can just walk into your base. Like,
I never able to do anything against that. Like, I always have to make overseers, and it's always too late. They always get my workers, and it's so annoying.
Yeah, that's why we need to scout better. Because if we have a better idea of what they might be doing, then we can pre-act, and pre-acting always beats reacting.
A lot of the time, I don't know what they do, like what these buildings do, because I don't know Protoss or Terran. I just know they're.
Yep, that's fair.
That's like
so. But the thing is too, right? Is that even as the opponent, I believe you can click on like what a building is. If you could see it currently, you can just like click on it if you don't know what it is. So yeah, you can click on your opponent's stuff.
Oh. And
it'll tell you. So like Dark Shrine again. So the Dark Shrine makes the Dark Templar, which are the invisible guys. This is the Twilight Council, of course. So if they have a Twilight Council, one of the things you need to be worried about is blink, because this means that they could have it.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. Cybercore. This is what allows them to get like gateway technology or the warp gates. and then like stalkers, right? So like, and then 3 robo, like again, like pretty much exactly what I was saying. Kind of like this Protoss could just like, if he decides, he could just go like, you know, I said 2 robo. Apparently I was being a bit generous, and he went 3 robo, as well as like freaking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gateways, and like 7 gate, 7 gates, 3 base with like a starport and 3 robo. Like, he spent all of his money teching like this. You could have like, oh wait, no, your base is full of Dark Templar. Never mind. You just didn't realize there were invisible men in your base.
I know.
But still, like, you... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 8 and 9?
I'm curious to see how long they were in my base.
They probably weren't there very long. Let's back it up. And again, we'll watch from the everyone cam. And we'll go on ×8. So he comes down here, builds his pylon, builds his gate, builds his expansion, builds a forge. Pretty much, if you see a forge this early, something weird's going on. Like, don't trust a Protoss player that has a forge. Like, if it's forged before units, that means he's not using it for upgrading. He's building cannons, and cannons are used to do this nonsense. Stargate, 3 gates. Oh my gosh. We're past 10 minutes, and this player has just started to actually like get units. Like, his production facilities didn't exist for like, wait, sorry, we're 5 minutes. I looked at the total time and I was like, we're at 10 minutes. Okay, it's just 5 minutes. Never mind. That's much less ridiculous. But we're morphing in banelings because we don't know what's going on. So let's say that these banelings are like, how many of these are there? There's like 9 of them there. Are these roaches? Oh, these are overlords because we... Okay, never mind. They're not all overlords. They're just like 1 or 2. That's fine. But still, let's say like these, like, well, no, these, if these were going 1-to-1, we would probably assume that they were like 3 roaches maybe. But yeah, like if we just like got a couple roaches, because we realized like you know, we have, where's our overlord? So our overlord ended up flying back this way, right? So if we take this overlord, our overlord was coming down here, it got shot with a photon cannon, and we backed it up. So there was the first thing I said was like, fly it down here, but like the other option was to fly back up to this high ground and try to spot over here, right? To like get a look at what his production was like. And we probably would have spotted this like 18 gateways at once, which each of these gateways is 150 minerals. So this is like 450 minerals just in gateways. And now he's adding on a whole bunch of other production facilities on top of that, which means if he's spending all of his money on production facilities, he has no units. So if we see an opponent is being greedy by having no units, we can punish that. Right? So like... Well,
what would be the correct play to punish this in that scenario?
Just make a bunch of roaches and walk across the map. Like, literally, if you make a bunch of roaches right now, well, not right now, but if we see, if like at the time that these were like starting to like warp in, if we see this warp in especially, and we just go like, oh, forget drones, I'm only gonna make roaches, and we run them across the map, like we easily kill these two these two, which what I would probably, if you're talking about micro plays here, what I would probably end up doing is I would blow up this photon cannon and then kill this pylon and then walk past this front. And I would just wreck this natural. Like, the reason being is if you take down this pylon, that becomes unpowered, that becomes unpowered, that becomes unpowered, this becomes unpowered.
Oh, okay. So if you break a pylon, they can't actually produce stuff. Yeah,
so none of, like, this upgrade stops working. This thing can't shoot you. This thing stops upgrading. This thing can't make units. So this little pylon in the middle here, which is what in the old days we would have called an Artosis pylon, 400 hit points, not hard to break. And
Okay.
because of this, so the reason I'm saying that you break this photon cannon, right? It's like 200 health. So you kill this, then you just kind of like reposition. So you come up here, and you can shoot this with almost taking no damage at all, pretty much, from this photon cannon. And yeah, you break this whole thing goes down, you run through, you kill all of these drones, or probes, and then like maybe like these finish and they start making like some zealots or stalkers or whatever, and you might not be able to push up this ramp with the couple of roaches you made, but you've wrecked their their economy's in shambles. You know, like you can actually contain. Yeah, you have pressure, and you can literally contain right here. Like you don't have to walk up this ramp to stop this player, right? So if you just literally leave a pile of roaches down the ramp, he can't walk down his ramp because you have a pile of roaches here. If he walks stalkers or something down this ramp, your roaches can just to a concave right at the bottom of the ramp, and they'll just die as they walk into you. So he actually needs blink to get past his own ramp, right?
Yeah.
Now what he can do is with this, they can, well, I can't select them just yet, but with the robos, they can make like a warp prism, and they can lift their way out of the base. But again, still, like you're forcing them to do ridiculous things just to deal with your positioning at that point.
Okay. So
I think the biggest thing here is just saying, like, why did I lose this game? I lost this game because I had no idea what my opponent was doing.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you got cheesed, but not in the way we typically think. We don't typically think about cheesing as being like this kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I just don't build any army whatsoever until I build 50 production facilities all at once, and then attack my opponent with every piece of tech in the game at the 8-minute mark. So like, yeah. This is such a greedy build your opponent did, and the only reason we lose to it is because we don't know what's happening.
Right.
So. Okay. That's how I would say I want to see us adjust, right? And I think like that's also why we kind of talked about the Baneling Nest being like, we really don't need his Baneling Nest because we don't know what our opponent is doing. So like that's how we adjust, right? So I think like this is an indication of what I would say is actually a form of a bad adjustment, in that you were playing your games, you went, oh man, the Protoss army composition I keep seeing has zealots in it. And maybe like, oh, I feel like these zealots are something I need to deal with, so I'm just gonna make banelings.
Yeah, that was.
But yeah, so that's fine. Like we should expect these kinds of like, you're not just gonna sit down and be like making pro gamer like decisions at the start of your career. Like, it's okay. But yeah, this is how we don't do it, and then how we do it is we say, how do I not lose to this? I notice it's happening, and then I kill it. Because this is literally one of the worst builds I think I've seen a Protoss do. Like literally, like he's got like a stalker. Like if we look at the, yeah, he has like 2 stalkers. Like he's got 4 pieces of he's 8. Never, he's got 8 pieces. Okay, so we're actually really behind too, which is another problem, I would say. But we don't, our 4 army doesn't really matter so much. But the big thing is more or less that the fact that he has so many more workers than us, and a big part of that I assume is because he was probably like chrono boosting probes because he didn't have to worry about his army. Although, where is the rest of his army?
Wait, you can chrono boost like your workers?
You can chrono boost the Nexus.
You can chrono boost that. That's
yeah. So it increases the build speed of anything, or research speed even, build or research of any building that you put it on. And so if you chrono boost, you could like chrono boost your Nexus to like make probes faster. Okay. So I assume that's probably part of what got us here. I'm curious as to where this 8 supply is in the army. I see a single stalker, which should not be this expensive.
You can go into like their view and you can click all army.
No, that's the production tab. Here's the army. No, that's the. Where is the units? U tab. Okay. Oh, he's got a zealot and a stalker. Apparently stalkers are more supply than I thought. Because literally he has 2 army units. He's got 1 zealot and 1 stalker. And that somehow is coming up to 8 supply. It seems a bit weird to me, but that's apparently true. So, but yeah. So yeah, basically if we scout, we see this, we adjust. Now, let's say this isn't like the game that's happening, right? Let's say he shows you something a little bit more standard. Let's say he does like a 3-gate push. Now, I don't want to like, I don't know when the 3-gate push happens, but let's say you're playing your game, you're doing your thing, you're droning, and you have a scout across the map and you see the push coming. You go, okay, my opponent is 3-gating me, so I know he's gonna do a gateway army. Cool, I'll be ready for it. Then your opponent pushes out, you have your Ling in place, you see the push, but you die to it anyway. What I would want you to do at that point is to note the time on the clock that push happened. And in fact, hopefully we get a whole bunch of losses where that push comes out at like right around that same time. Let's say this push happens at like 5 minutes. So if we notice that we're getting pushed by a 3-gate Protoss like nearly every single time right around 5 minutes, that tells us that when we realize earlier that what they're doing looks like a 3-gate build, we know we need to have something in place for the 5-minute mark, because that's probably when they're going to push us. Now, we don't like hard commit and like just like build a whole bunch of stuff before 5 minutes, but we build enough that we're in position, we're ready for that, to receive that push when it comes. Okay. Something else that we can kind of do, I don't want to do this like for every single map or whatever, because like they're very different, but something you can kind of do too is figure out like how long it takes for like the Protoss player in this case to walk a unit from their base to your base. So if that'll tell you then, like if you see them push out, you go, well, I've got 20 seconds before this push hits me, you know? And then you know, like, okay, well, this unit builds in this amount of time. Like a Zergling takes 17 seconds. So if you've got 20 seconds, you know you can build around the Zerglings and they'll be in place in time. Roaches, 19 seconds. They'll be in place in time. Hydralisks are 24 seconds, which means you don't have time to make Hydralisks if it takes 20 seconds to walk across the map. You know? So that's a little deep. You don't necessarily have to get that deep, but like if you that is something that you can do to make sure that you're ready to receive the push when it happens. Okay. But yeah, so I think if we just see you kind of scout a little bit more and try to figure out a little bit, and this is like part of it too, right? Because like right now you're kind of in the mode where you're like, I'm focusing on doing what I'm doing, like your game plan. And you're starting to unfortunately have to hit the point of game too where you're like, well, I also have to like realize that my opponent is doing stuff and I got to go figure out what they're doing, and which means now you're not just learning your own strategies, you're going to be learning a lot of theirs. But I don't want you to get bogged down and think you have to learn every single like Protoss like build. Don't care about that. You're looking for like specific mixes. So now granted, like he built 7 freaking gateways and then but the reason why this didn't turn into a whole bunch of stalkers was because he was actually dark shrining. So all he did was build a bunch of Dark Templar. So DT Shrine is important to spot. Those sorts of tech structures are really important to figure out what they're capable of and what they're probably going to throw at you. Stargate, again, another thing, you know, if they build a Stargate, they can send air at you. You better be ready for it. You know, Robos, Immortals are gonna wreck your roaches. Colossi are gonna wreck your army in general. Your Lings especially, and if they hit your Hydras, they're gonna be toast as well. So that's kind of like what we need to be like keeping an eye out for, is like figuring out like what do you have a lot of. So like if I like, to be fair, if this were me, I would say, and I'm looking at this right now, I see 4 gates, a Stargate, and 2 Robos at this exact moment. I don't know what this player is doing. I'm being perfectly honest. If I were to see them at this exact moment, I would be like, what the hell? But what I would know is the other thing of, oh, this player is building all of their production at the same time, therefore they have no units. It's go time. Gotcha. But let's say all of these were, let's say this is like a little bit later in the game, and you come in here and you see this, and you know they have an army, and you see like this mix. Okay, they're probably going for a gateway focus, like a gateway army with like 2 Robo Colossus with like phoenixes to like stop my corruptors from killing their colossi. That would be my initial thought, because that's a typical sort of, at least it used to be a typical thing. I don't know if it still is, but like the whole thing is like figuring out like why they're building these buildings, right? Like if they're building a lot of gateways, they obviously want to use them for something, and then like they're building 2 robos, like, okay, so obviously that's going to factor in. If they're building only 1 robo, like they're going to have a much smaller like presence, like that those units are going to be much smaller numbers within their larger army. So if they build 2 robos, you're like, okay, no, they're not just looking to get a few of these, like they're not just getting like a warp prism or like an observer, like they are doing this to build immortals or to build colossi.
Gotcha.
Which, if they're building them so early, I would say probably this does look like immortals. The reason being is that you need 1 robo down before you can build what's the other building called? I keep calling it the Colossus Den, and that's not, obviously it's not what it's actually called, but oh, it's the Robo Bay, and it's the robotics facility. Oh, that's why I always get it mixed up. Okay, so the bay, the Robo Bay. If they build the Robo Bay, or sorry, if they're going for 2 Robo Colossus, they don't need to build 2 Robos together. They would build 1 Robo, let it finish, make the robotics bay, and then start the second Robo facility.
Okay.
Because that way, when the Robo and the bay finish, you can start making double Colossus. But if you are building 2 Robos at the same time, you don't care about getting Colossus. You're looking for immortals. Most likely. That's my thought process anyway. But again, you know what? Let me back this up. Don't think too hard about it. Just look at what they're doing. Look at their tech. Understand what that could mean. And then just, keep an eye on things like that. So, because yeah, this is something that like obviously you could easily spot out. Other players, again, you're gonna go and you're gonna spot other things. The other thing too is that like, again, if you have like those early 6-lings, right? If you put like 1 over here, 1 over here, 1 over here, like 1 over here, like you just like, literally just spread them out across the map. That's gonna help you because like let's say as you're doing that, they pushed a probe over here and they were going to be like, haha, I'm going to build a pylon here with 2 gateways and I'm going to 2 gateway zealot rush this Zerg player with these, with these gateways. And when they're so close, that means the reinforcements are really quick, right? So like,
yeah.
Obviously it's very dangerous because they could easily lose this if you defend it, but it's harder to defend because their buildings are so much closer. So if you just like send Zerglings all over the map, you'll spot like a proxy gateway.
Okay.
Which again, that's kind of the whole thing. Is if we know what's happening, we can make decisions. If we don't know what's happening, it's much harder to make decisions because we're just sort of guessing at that point. Which is something that is pissing me off about Diamond players because they don't even do it. Okay. I keep seeing these replays, these Diamond and Masters players. They're just like, oh, whatever. I'm just gonna like build my stuff out, do my build, and then I'm either gonna win or I'm gonna lose. It's like, well, that's not how the game is played. Go look at what your opponent is doing because then you can make actual decisions. So, okay, so I think we have something to kind of work on. Focus on your scouting, and then try to just focus on your scouting, see what your opponent is doing, and then try to use that information to the best of your ability to stop what they're doing, or just to, you know, adjust your play and, you know, not play to your opponent's game plan, but plan with your opponent's game plan in mind.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess the other thing would be, you already said it too, is get that creep spread going. And so yeah, I guess we'll kind of meet back in about a week, and as far as doing something in depth like this again. And I want to. So here's what I want you to do.
Okay.
The next, like, so do your thing, and then, like, maybe in a day or two, pick a loss that you're gonna focus on making an adjustment with, and then make your, like, I want you to write this down too, because I want you to have it, like, for our next meeting. So I want you to get a loss. I can post this to you later too, like in text. But
just
so
DM it to me. Actually.
I will DM it to you. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get a loss that you say, I think I need to make an adjustment to my play based on what happened to me in this match, and then you're gonna look, and I want you to look at the replay and look at it like a couple times, and like try to identify this, like, the smallest adjustment you can make to fix that problem, and then I want you to work on that problem over the next couple of games, and even a couple of days. Like, don't grind and like just do this all in one day. Like, figure out your adjustment, do it for a while, and then a couple days later, I want you to make another look at another game, make another adjustment to that same problem if you're still having it. If you fix the problem, then, like, don't keep fixing the problem, but if you see another problem occur, then, like, maybe fix that problem instead. So basically it's like identify problem, adjustment, identify like if you're still having the same problem or not, make an adjustment, and then a third map where you do it again. So I want 3 replays, and I want to see how we're making our adjustments as we're going over time, and we'll look over all 3 of those next time.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, all right, and I guess that'll be the end of our session.